Ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning. Thank you all for coming and not being drunk last night.
How did you know?
Well, I guess the ones drunk are on the train delayed, right? Anyway, so hi, I'm CL, and I'm talking about any event, or AnyMQ, or some of any events, Hippie, and the real-time web. So let's start. So that's my name, and if you can't pronounce it, or even if you can pronounce it, people usually call me Chia-liang Kao, and most of the time I'm cooking, so stuff like that. But sometimes when I get bored, I start writing some code. Right. So today, mostly I'm talking about the stuff I've been playing with these days. So here's a bunch of lists. PSGI and Plaque, which is quite new, only a year or so. And any event, AnyMQ, and QP, and some server push technologies, WebSockets, which is new in HTML5, and the Hippie module I wrote. Okay, so let's start with PSGI. So it's the superglue of pro web environment thing, right? So who heard of PSGI and Plaque, and who use it? Who wrote it? Well, I think he's not here yet. Yes. Okay. So PSGI is, a lot of you know already, but it's basically taking an environment and returning some information about how a web page is about, like the status, the header, and the body, like that. So you can actually get stuff similar to CGI, like the environment being a hash, and you can get pass info out of it. Or you can use some wrapping small utilities that get things like Plaque request objects, and then just get pass info out of it once it's instantiated. But more interestingly, PSGI supports some kind of streaming interface. So taking a environment as an input, you can return a closure, a subroutine. And then the subroutine, you can then do some weird calling and then hand off the response to the caller a bit later. For example, in an event callback, you can delay the response for 3 seconds or so, like that. So it's kind of interesting that it's no longer like just imperative that you have an environment and you have a static response. You can actually have a closure, and the server will serve the content from the closure later. Okay? So the conclusion for that is CGI PM must die. You must all use PSGI. If you haven't, you should. Okay. So just now we saw some examples about PSGI response that's making use of any event. So who knows about any event? And who use it? Not much of you who wrote it? Not here either, damn it. Right, so any event is yet another kind of event loop, but it's kind of meta event loop. So it supports different kinds of event loop, like EV or GLEAP event loop, or even POE. And it's actually, I think it's the simplest one that's available in the pro world. So here's an example for getting YAPC on the site. You just use any event HTTP and you call that with a callback. And you can do something else, like serving web page with PSGI, or I don't know, wait for something. And then when the response is ready, your subroutine here will be called, right? And of course, because this is closure, you can have some other variable before HTTP get, and that variable will be available inside the subroutine, the callback response as well, right? So if you want to do this kind of thing in POE, we can try that. It will be something like this. So I think never say the language is important in like what must be said rather than what can be said. So we can perform the same task, but in POE you must say this. So it's kind of sad. And we like that better. So there are a lot of any event modules on CPAN, and you can actually do a lot of things with that now. So I wrote something called AnyMQ, which is actually inspired by Tatsumaki message queue, which is a message queue inside Tatsumaki. It's actually quite simple, and it's by this guy as well. And a little bit more refactoring and supporting timeout handler and stuff is modified from Tatsumaki message queue. And it also uses moose traits to allow connection to or adaptation to other kind of message queue, such as MQP. So let's take a look at an example. And by the way, it's on CPAN and GitHub, of course. So here's how you use AnyMQ. Basically, you have a bus, which is a bus, serve messages and the listeners and everything. And you can create a topic called full, like that, bus topic. And then you create a subscriber which listens to one or more than one topics. Okay, so you say you want to create a new listener which listens to the topic we just created. And to poll the listener to see if there are messages that the listener is interested in, you say sub poll and then give it a callback to do things. And later, somewhere else in the code or somewhere in other callback, you can say topic publish message. And your callback here, you just get a message there. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. But of course, this only works like within the same process. So to scale out or to do something more interesting, you want to use the AnyMQ with MQP support, which is actually, thanks to moose traits, it's actually the same, pretty much the same syntax, but in the constructor, you say new with trace, and trace being AnyMQP, and all the other AnyMQP controlling variables, such as which host and port you're connecting to, and stuff like that. So, like, it's similar to what to the publish and the pooling information flow, but you can do it on more than one servers. Okay, so imagine you have 4 instances of this, like running 4 different processes or different servers. That this talks to an MQP server. That every publish is actually not only to your own process but also to the server, and all the pooling are not pulling only from your process, but also from the server. And of course, there's some code to avoid crazy duplication and stuff. So it's like pretty much the same code. You can magically scale out to like a cluster or something doing the same thing. So it's actually quite new, and I've been using it for various stuff. If you have some message queue like you like, which I like AnyMQ nowadays, I think it's hot. So please help writing bindings to other queues. Right, questions so far? You look confused. Okay, so let's talk about a bit webby stuff like server push and comet. So comet, according to Wikipedia, originally means like the term came from like a star with very long hair, as you see a comet flying through, right? So in the context of web, it's been used since 2006 for like the kind of mechanism for information being pushed from the server to the client without explicit request from the client. So it's a lot of common use case these days, like Gmail notification, Twitter notification, and like Facebook updates, like random annoyances to you. So annoyance in real time. So to do this kind of common notification and common server push support, actually there's a lot of hacks involved, such as multi-part XHR and forever iFriend, and sometimes you have to deal with the spinning wheels in some browsers, and also some browser has connection limits. You can only open 2 connections to a particular server, so if you have one long-running connection, then the other one will be blocked or something like that. So that's the status until